so this is Ellen from Sewn by Ellen, and today, as you can see, we're getting real fancy because we're going to talk about court presentation gowns, more especially British court presentation gowns from the turn of the century. So, what is a court presentation gown? Well, essentially, it is the type of dress that you would have worn while being presented at the British court. So Queen Victoria, she held 4 so-called drawing rooms every year, and this was an opportunity for women to be introduced at court and introduced into society or high society. It was very formal, and there were a lot of different rules surrounding this process. Not everyone, of course, could be presented to the Queen. You needed to belong to a certain class. And you also needed to have someone who could present you or to be like a sponsor for you. And if you were coming out into society as a debutante, maybe your sponsor could be your mother or another female relative, as we can see in Downton Abbey, for example. And this woman who was your sponsor needed to be already out in society and needed to herself have been introduced at the court. So, to the most important question, what to wear when being presented at the court? Well, essentially a court presentation gown was a fashionable ball or evening gown, but with some additions and modifications. And many women choose to reuse their court presentation gowns for other events. And you could, for example, use it as your wedding dress later on, or you could reuse it as a ball gown instead. The most common color for these court presentation gowns were white. That was the stipulated color for unmarried women and often the fashion for married women as well. But if you were married and if you were the one presenting someone, so this sponsor that I mentioned, you could wear some color, but a light color such as this pale pink. If you were in mourning, you could wear black, but that was a bit more unusual. The main difference between an evening dress or a ball gown from this time and a court dress is the train, because a train was necessary. It was one of the regulations. You needed to have a train, and the train needed to be somewhere between 3 and 3.5 yards long, and it could attach either at the shoulder, so right here, or it could attach around the waist. And I chose to do mine, and I chose to attach my train from the waist. If you attached it at the shoulders, there could be some decorative brooches here, for example. And I've only found one extant example of this, of a train that was attached around the waist, and it's from a court gown from Austria, actually, from the 1890s. But this was the only example that I could find of a detachable waist train, so to speak. And so this is the type of construction that I chose for my train as well. It's extremely heavy, I can add, because there's so much fabric. So the train was very heavy. Apart from the train, you also needed to have feathers in your hair, as you can see here. And at first, in the beginning of the 1800s, for example, the number of feathers seems to have been a bit elastic, and you could wear as many as 5 at once. But later on it was almost decided that 3 was the number of feathers for married women and 2 for unmarried women. I read a fantastic book from 1882, which is called Manners and Tone of Good Society. And it was written by a member of the aristocracy. And in this book we can read that it is compulsory for both married and unmarried ladies to wear plumes. The married lady's court plume consists of 3 white feathers and the unmarried ladies of 2 white feathers. I also have a veil in my hair here, a tulle veil, because either lace lappets or tulle veils were necessary to wear. And in the same book, The Manners and Tone of Good Society, we can read that lady must either wear lace lappets or a tall veil. As a rule, the former are worn by married ladies and the latter by unmarried ladies. But this also is a matter of individual taste. So, it was most common for married ladies to wear lace lappets and for unmarried ladies to wear the tall veils. But you did have some choice in the matter, so that's why I used a tall veil for my court gown. And along the 19th century, the rules surrounding ladies' court dress became more and more strict. And in 1878, the Lord Chamberlain actually issued instruction, especially regarding ladies' courtwear. And it says this: ladies who attend Her Majesty's drawing room must appear in full court dress with trains and plumes according to regulations. That is, so that the feathers can clearly be seen on approaching the Queen. And I think you can see me approaching with these feathers. And with the white veils or lappets. Colored feathers are contrary to regulations, but in deep mourning, black feathers may be worn. So white was the standard color, that was the color to wear, but if you were in deep mourning, you could wear black feathers instead, but quite unusual. The bodies of these court presentation gowns were low cut and had either short sleeves or no sleeves, depending on the fashion. It was actually necessary to wear low cut bodies unless you had medical reasons to do otherwise. And then you needed to have a doctor's note and produce that to the Lord Chamberlain, and then you could be approved to wear a high court gown instead, so with a higher neck and longer sleeves. Some other accessories that were worn were jewelry, of course. You could wear some hair jewelry and a tiara if you were married. You also needed to wear gloves, white gloves were necessary to wear. And you also carried either a fan or a bouquet of flowers. So at first, fans were the most common accessory to wear in your hand, but by the 1890s, quite large bouquets of flowers have become more popular. And you can see that in several of the pictures that I have here, that most of these ladies are wearing large bouquets. There's quite a lot of pictures of these court presentation gowns, because if you were being presented at court, you had spent a lot of money on a dress that was suitable, and this was of course a very big occasion in your life to come out in society, and you would want to in some way remember that. So we do have quite a lot of pictures that we can look at, which is very nice. We can see some examples of how these dresses could look. And if we look at these pictures here, these ladies seems to be very calm and collected, and they look very sophisticated. But I have read that the process surrounding court presentation wasn't always that nice. You needed to have quite a strong character and a lot of patience to last the whole day, because this was a very crowded event. And in April 1863, in the magazine London Society, it's described like this: pushing as only fine ladies can push, frowning and dragging as only the British dowagers can. And in the 1880s, it was reported that dresses were torn and debutantes were weeping before this ordeal was over. And that's actually not that hard to imagine, because you have to think about that these dresses are very quite restrictive, and they are very heavy. The train especially is very heavy, but also if you're wearing a tiara, that's quite heavy. And these dresses were very delicate and expensive, so you wanted to be careful, of course. And you were standing in this crowded room, and people were stepping into you and maybe ruining your dress. I would also be weeping if someone tore apart my dress, because I spent a lot of time and money on this dress. In 1891 in Punch, it was described like this. We were driven from one bitterly cold room to another. One had many fellow sufferers, and these poor creatures pushed against us and fought with us. So it could be quite rowdy around these presentations. Yeah, so this wasn't always a very pleasurable affair. It could get a bit crazy at the palace, it seems like. So to finish this off, I thought that we could just look at some of the pictures that I found during my research, and also have a closer look at how my own version of a court presentation gown reflects those examples. So here, for example, we have a very nice dress from 1898 that was worn by Baroness Adrienne Elizabeth Maria Chaquette de Geer. Longest name ever. Very beautiful dress. You can see it from the side, and we can see that her train attaches at the shoulders. We can also see that her train has a square ending. You could have either a square ending or a rounded one, and this was entirely dependent on the fashion. And at this time the fashion was for square train endings. We can also see that there's some tulle attached to the underside of the train. I've done the same with my train, and it makes a lot of difference actually with how the train falls and also how it moves when you're walking, because it's very, very heavy, and it must be even heavier when you have it attached at the shoulders. And so to have some tulle there just elevates it from the ground a bit and actually makes it easier to walk with, I find anyway. We can also see that she has these feathers in her hair, and she's wearing this large bouquet of white flowers. Another very nice example, and I love that she was wearing glasses actually. So this is Lady Makeling. Sorry for all my pronunciations. So this is Lady Makeling, and it seems like she's wearing 3 feathers, so I presume that she's married. And she's also, from what I can see, wearing a train that attaches at the shoulders, and you can see her white veil as well. And she's also wearing this bouquet of white flowers. And to end, the last one I'm going to show you is this Lady Clementine wearing, and I just love her pose. She looks so relaxed, and she looks like she's just owning the room. I love her, and she has what it seems like quite a plain dress, not that decorated. It does have some sequin decorations at the bodice and some ruffles, of course, and she's wearing difficult to see where the train attaches because she's sitting down, but she's wearing a train with some feather decorations and with these tall ruffles as well. And I do have a description here, and it says that it's a presentation gown of soft white chiffon embroidered in a delicate tracery of silver. The corsage and sleeves were draped with very fine Valenciennes lace and trimmed with white plumes and silver gauze butterflies. The train of rich Duchesse satin was arranged from one shoulder, so there we have it, and trimmed with ruchings of white chiffon, feathers and silver butterflies. So it looks stunning in the pictures, and I can't even imagine how it would have looked in reality, because these of course are black and white photos, and it doesn't really do these dresses justice, I think, because often there were a lot of decorations, embroidery, sequins and different like stones and sparkles and so on, and it must have looked really spectacular when you saw it with the light and everything. So I haven't done an exact copy of a court presentation gown. I've done my version, but with inspiration from historic examples, and of course taking all these different rules into consideration so that my dress would have been acceptable to be introduced. So I have done an embroidered bodice, embroidered with pearls, sequins and rhinestones. The skirt is, I have left it plain, which was also quite common at the time, but the train is quite decorated, and it's also very heavy, actually very heavy. So that's a bit about court presentation gowns. I hope you enjoyed this. I really had fun while doing this dress. It took me a long time with all the embroidery and the rhinestones, and the train was a pain to work with because there was so much fabric and it's so heavy and a lot to work with. But I'm very happy with the result, and I think it's one of the dresses that I spent most time working on, and I'm very happy with the result. So I hope you like it as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another decade. Bye!